Nandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vallachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Can you give you don't have English Bhagavad-Gita? The verses?
18.23.
Yeah. Niyatam saṅga-rahitam.
Niyatam saṅga-rahitam.
Arāga-dveṣataḥ kṛtam.
Arāga-dveṣataḥ.
Aphala-prepsunā karma.
Aphala-prepsunā karma.
Yatat sattvikam ucyate.
Yatat sattvikam ucyate.
That action which is regulated, which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, without desire for fruitive result, is to be in the mood of goodness. Purport. Regulated occupational duties as described in scripture in terms of the different orders and division of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Kṛṣṇa consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without self-satisfaction or self-gratification, is called action in the mode of goodness. Hare Krishna. So there's not much of a purport, but it's very important to understand the principle that is right at the beginning of the Bhagavad-Gita. Where's that first verse? I had the file there.
Yeah.
Where's that file? You lost it. What happened to the file? You did something to it. Yeah, this file, I just projected it. What did you do with the computer? Huh?
Where was it stored? I just closed the window. Sorry.
How do you find this now?
It's there. That's it.
No? You put me in a big mess here. There it is. Okay, here it is. I need my mouse.
Zoom कीजिएगा full screen नहीं.
Okay, it disappeared again. We don't see it.
We don't need a projection. We need just that I can read the file. So, let me get into it. So, the word duty is very important for us to understand in Krishna consciousness. We just heard that there were how many verses on Bhagavad-Gita?
700.
69 verses.
That's 69, total 69 in your file.
Right. See, Srila Prabhupada also, these last days, I happened to be in Prabhupada's room for a good while, in the last days, up to the end. And at one stage, Godbrother visited him, and he spoke in English, and he said, Prabhu, he said, oh, Babu, I think Babu is a Bengali way of saying, Babu, he said, you have done wonderful. And Prabhupada was 3 days before he left his body. He said, no, I didn't do wonderful. I said, I did just my duty. D-U-T-Y. He said like this. He spelled it, duty, D-U-T-Y. And so if you look at Prabhupada's life, his whole life was based on duty, a duty to his spiritual master. In Bhagavad-Gita, the first verse that is right here in Bhagavad-Gita, now I'm confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of my weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you for certain what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple and I surrender true unto you, please instruct me. So if there's no sense of duty, we lost our bearings. We lost our bearings. And the whole Varnashram Dharma system is about duty. Atapum BG-18.23 Varnashrama Vibhagasya Svanushritasya Dharmasya Samsiddhi Haritoshanam, to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Varnashram Dharma system is there, and everybody has a duty. Like Arjuna's duty was to fight. That was his duty as a Kshatriya. Why Kṛṣṇa called it, when he failed to do so, Kṛṣṇa said, how can these impurities come upon you? Kṛṣṇa calls it an impurity, that he didn't follow his duty. It's an impurity. And it's true in daily life, that's an impurity. If we don't follow our duty, it turns to impurity. Like, for example, say you're a policeman and you see your uncle breaks into the shop at night. What is your duty as a policeman? You have to arrest him. You can't say, well, he's my uncle. Like Arjuna, he was swayed by sentimental family attachment. You have to arrest him. If he doesn't arrest him and the superintendent finds out, he will say, how can these impurities come upon you? You know the duties of a policeman, right? So in Vedic culture, there's a very strong sense of duty. We don't have this in the West. In the West, everybody thinks I can do whatever I like. Women want to be men, men want to be women. The whole thing is in confusion. The whole family tradition is destroyed because of it. And Kṛṣṇa Arjuna says in the first chapter, the family tradition is destroyed, then the whole society goes to hell. And so Varnashram Dharma system is extremely important for humanity to function. You know, if there would be no policeman, if there would be no religion, for example, religion brings people to the understanding of duty. What is my duty? If there's no religion, you cannot hire enough policemen to keep law and order. So duty is very important. That Bill Gates is the head of Microsoft. He says, I prefer to work with Indian people because they have a great sense of duty. And they're very stable because of that. They have a great sense of duty. Duty means duty. D-U-T-Y, as Prabhupada said, duty. And so the whole Bhagavad-Gita, Kṛṣṇa says that it's better to follow your own duty than to follow somebody else's duty. It's dangerous to follow somebody else's. Better you do your own duty imperfectly than somebody else's duty perfectly. It's dangerous to follow somebody else's path. So the Western society is on a very dangerous path. There is no sense of duty, and people don't know how to be a father, how to be a mother, how to be a child. You know, I can only say for my own family, they were traditional Catholic family, very Orthodox family. And I've never heard an argument between my father and my mother, because he was a Prabhu. She didn't use the word Prabhu, but he was a Prabhu, period. And that worked very well. So everybody has his duty. In Western culture, the men become completely emaciated. Emaciated means they become deluded, they become like women. You know, because there's no sense of... No man can run a family if the wife, if there are two captains on board. You see, if there are two men in the house, the family cannot function. It leads to ultimately divorce, 100%. And that's, you see, in India. In India there was a great sense of duty, but still there, and very pristine if you go to Indian villages. But then the West comes in Hollywood, Bollywood, and people dysfunctional, the kids speak up to their parents, and they start taking drugs, and the whole thing goes to hell, the whole society. So it's very important to understand the sense of duty, and therefore Kṛṣṇa speaks 69 verses, just on duty, on the principle. Think about that, Supreme Personality of Godhead. 69 of his verses are about duty. Anybody who wants the file, I can send him that. It's very important. If you study, if you're interested, for example, if you study these verses, you get a great sense of duty comes also out of the Bhagavad-Gita. Brahmacharya has duty, sannyasi has duty, vanaprastha, everybody has a duty, sannyasi has duty. They're duties that regulate our life. And so in the same way, women have a duty and men have a duty. And they're completely different. I mean, I can give you an example, can I have a water? Out of my own family. There's water here. We have water here. There was a bottle. There was a bottle right here.
Yeah, he has it in his bag.
Glass, separate glass.
So, my father happened to be in a concentration camp. This is a very personal story, but it's very telling. He was in a concentration camp, and he suffered like anything. He was tortured every night by one particular man in the concentration camp. He was tortured for hours, every night, 2 months, 3 months. And so my mother, she could visit him because we are not Jewish, we are political. He was a political prisoner because he was in resistance to Nazi Germany. And so my mother could visit him, and one day my mother said, you see this man on the hill? That is a man who tortures me every night. And my mother, she took a photo, mentally. You know, this face was etched into her face. She couldn't forget it. So now comes the point. that when he died, his life was ruined, mentally, physically, due to the concentration camp. And I saw this. We heard him screaming every night. So in trauma, post-traumatic experiences. And so when the body was lying in a coffin, before, in Germany, in Europe, an undertaker came who takes care of that. He washes the body and puts it into a body, into a coffin. So the undertaker washed the body of my father. Now listen very clearly, very important. My mother saw it, and she screamed and fell on the ground unconscious. So we put her in her bed, put water in her face, and she came to herself. And she said, "My God, my God, my God." And it came out that the undertaker was the SS block warden who had tortured her, my father, in the concentration camp. It was the same person. Providence can be very cruel. It was the same person. Now we come to the point. Myself, I went into the basement to get an axe, to kill him. My brother said, "No, we burn him alive." Our blood was boiling. To kill, he's not going to get out of the house alive, because he ruined our family. And my mother said, "No, no, no." She said, "Nothing will happen like this." He said, "He has a wife, and she's innocent. And the wife has children, and they're innocent. Why adding more suffering as has already been caused? He has to make this up with his Creator." Only women can do that. Like Drupadi. Only a woman can do that. So it's a very important function. There's a male role and a female role. Very important, the female role. She stables the family. You know, the idea is the husband, the duty is to provide. The wife maintains the house. The children may destroy the house. It's a fact. But the important role of a woman is prescribed. Somebody may say, "Well, that's very boring." In American society, who was it? President Clinton's wife said, "Why should I go in the kitchen if I can become a lawyer?" That's the Western mentality. She doesn't understand that if you take the deity worship out of the household life, if there's no deity to be worshipped by the woman who cooks the prasadam for Kṛṣṇa, who offers the prasadam to Kṛṣṇa, who takes care, it's a whole system that supports a woman's role in her house. There's plenty of work to do. She can cook for Kṛṣṇa, clean for Kṛṣṇa, think about Kṛṣṇa, and she doesn't have to worry about financing. That's the business of the husband. He goes out and struggles to make the money, and the woman is at home, and she takes care of these duties. If there are deities there, and she keeps the deities nice. I have visited so many Indian families, and you see that principle. There's always a beautiful altar, and the women are cooking and cleaning, and they're happy with that. They're booked out. They don't have to worry anything. They just have to do their duty. You see? So in the same way, a male likes to go out and fight with the world. It's his nature. If you take that away, you emasculate a man, means you make him like a woman. Right? He can't be a man anymore. You turn him to a wimp, as we say in practical terms, right? So everybody has to follow his duty. It's very dangerous to follow somebody else's path. And this is the only way how we can understand Varnashram Dharma. Varnashram Dharma, I studied at one stage sociology. The smallest building block of a society is a family. If that building block is destroyed, dysfunctional, the whole society collapses. It's just a matter of time. The family gives stability, and the traditional family is the building block of Varnashram Dharma. Prabhupada used to say before he left, Abhiram told me, he was with Prabhupada when Prabhupada said 50% of my work is unfinished. And Abhiram said, because you didn't complete the Bhagavad-Gita. He said, no, that's not the issue. He said, because I couldn't finalize or institute Varnashram Dharma. You know, very important. We think, well, we are all in higher regions, but you have your duty in Saffron, and I have a duty, everybody has a duty. Very important, the idea of duty, which is in Western society almost non-existent. Nobody knows how to be a man, how to be a woman, practically speaking. And in some countries like Denmark, you can change your passport, you have an identity, 2 passports, a female and a male. You want to be addressed as Sven on one day, next day, completely legal, you have passport, you also Sven, yeah. This whole society is going mad. Whole society is going mad. If there is no sense of duty, there's no clear understanding of duty. And so, in that sense, Vedic society works the best. A traditional society. I remember I was one time invited by a family in Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh is a kind of pious country known for piety. It was a traditional family. Some boys saw me chanting Gayatri in some tributary of the Ganga, and they came over and said, how come you chant Gayatri? You're Angrezi, you're white. I said, well, I follow Vaishnava tradition. They said, oh, my father is a Vaishnava. Would you like to come at home? I said, sure. So we came, and grandfather came, grandmother came, grandfather asked questions, where I'm coming from, etc. Kṛtam was there. People came, the place became flooded from people outside. The windows had to be opened. People were looking forward to hear the Kṛtam. It was wonderful atmosphere. And so these boys on the little Hero Honda or whatever these bicycles drove me from one temple to another, from one cave to another. Here Radharani took bath, Zita took bath, etc. And so after 3 weeks staying there, and now comes the point why I tell this story. The boy who initially contacted me, he helped me to put the luggage into the compartment of the train. And I said to him, I thank you very much. It is astounding how we become such good friends. He said, friends? He said, friends we never can become. He said, because friendship you can give up. You are our grandfather. And the relationship to the grandfather we can never give up. That's Vedic culture. Beautiful. Such a clear understanding. The grandfather cannot give up the society to connection to grandfather, grandparents, or even elderly people. There's a deep sense there. In Vedic society, everything has a place, everything is organized. We don't have to concoct. When Prabhupada left his body day before, he said the following thing. It was very instructive. He asked his disciple to give him medicine. And Prabhupada took the medicine and he said, did you close the bottle? He said, I forgot Srila Prabhupada. And because Prabhupada was a medical man, he would take the bottle, take a pill and close it, because otherwise he knock it over. So he obviously told him before, be very careful, take a pill out, close it, etc. So I forgot Srila Prabhupada. He said, that is your disease. He said, all of you. He said, you know how to open bottles, you don't know how to close them. You start so many new things, and you don't see the consequences. It's very important. He said, you know how to live, but you don't know how to die, and therefore I have to show you. And then he called Yaduba to make that film, the final lesson. This is a sequence what actually happened in Prabhupada's room, So it's Western society is opening bottles. Let's try this one, let's try that one. And the whole society, the whole environment, the rivers, the oceans, everything is polluted, the air is polluted, food is polluted, bodies are polluted. And who is going to control all that? They cause a huge mess. Ultimately, like Prabhupada says in Bhagavad-Gita, or Kṛṣṇa says in Bhagavad-Gita, the demons destroy the world. That's what it is. Who can get the world on track after this mess that has been caused by modern scientists? Only Kṛṣṇa can do that. And he will. Prabhupada said that ultimately this movement is going to change the world. Because we are simply following, or supposed to follow, what Kṛṣṇa tells us. What Kṛṣṇa. People may try to change that truth, but Prabhupada was not interested in that. One time, important thing in this regard, that Umapati Swami, Umapati at that time, he asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, what you say in America about women will not be very popular. And Prabhupada said, I will not change the truth for the Americans. I will not change the truth. Because the truth is that everybody has a duty. Everybody has his fault and everybody has his glory. You see, everybody has his fault and everybody has his glory. So, but we have to understand what is my duty. What's my duty? And Prabhupada gave us some clear directions for how to lead our life. And he told us over and over again that preaching is the essence, books are the basic, purity is the force, and utility is the principle. These things Prabhupada gave us, we should think about that. So we have a sense of duty towards our neighbor. In a society, we have to preach Krishna consciousness according to our means. You know, I saw in Russia so many boys, girls, they all go out and try to distribute, or here at the table, or at least talk to somebody about Krishna consciousness. There's a sense of urgency there to spread Krishna consciousness, which is called Jiva Doya. It's called Jiva Doya. And the gopis themselves, kṛtam tapta jivanam, that verse, he said, those who spread the message of Godhead are the greatest welfare worker. And Krishna himself said, one who preaches his message is most dear to me, niyataṁ paramam guhyam bhakti-yoga, most dear to me. No one is more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Is that true? Did Krishna say that? Yes. You know? So it's very important that the three things, there's namaruchi, we have to come to taste, and there is Vaishnava Seva, we have to serve the, and then there's Jiva Doya. We have to have a sense of compassion. And Prabhupada's sense of compassion was endless. It was endless, you know. And you can see the result of Prabhupada's life. It was like an enormous amount of effect this one man had on the whole world by going to America in an old age and driven by a strong sense of duty to his spiritual master. That's what it is. And I have one story to tell, that one time, a long time ago, I was the president of San Francisco Temple, and this must be 40 years ago plus. And so I was standing my rounds in the morning in Golden Gate Park. There's this hill where Prabhupada started the preaching in San Francisco. In Golden Gate Park, he would sit on that hill and people were dancing. There's this famous movie that was made. It was always about 200 yards away from that. And standing my rounds in the morning sun, it was beautiful. So one old man came by, and he was black, and he was homeless. He was pushing a cart with all his belongings. That means he was homeless. And he stood in front of me, and I got worried, you know, what's next, you know. He stared at me, and then he said, this man who started this off, this Kṛṣṇa, he said he was a cool cat, which is the highest praise you can get in the American black community. He was a cool cat. He said, I was living in the Bowery. Prabhupada was living in the Bowery. I was living in the Bowery. He lived in the same house. The house was a complete mess. It was completely destroyed. And he lived there and shared with us. And then he said, but Jesus also, he was born in a barn. So that he saw the connection, you know. That I found this very beautiful, that he expressed that he had a high regard for Srila Prabhupada, and he was a homeless person, because Prabhupada touched his heart in so many ways. And so Prabhupada touches the heart of millions of people by his preaching. Therefore this huge temple grows. And one time Srila Prabhupada told us that he was visited by a large amount of people in his room, and they said to him, Swamiji, you have to assign a successor. And Prabhupada said, I will not do that. He said, why not? Well, my spiritual master gave me this instruction. So how can I do that? Then the man, one of the leaders of this gentleman said, but then your movement is 100% finished. And Prabhupada said, you're 100% wrong. He says, this is Lord Chaitanya's movement. It's God's movement. We're 100% successful. But it will take some time. You see, that's what Prabhupada said. So he had this conviction. And so we can have this conviction right out of the mouth of Guru Maharaj. it will be 100% successful. But we have to cooperate. We have to cooperate, and we have to try to institute Varnashram Dharma in some way or another, or at least start to appreciate this concept, because otherwise people have no bearings. You know, you're living as a brahmachari, you're wearing saffron clothes, you learn in the brahmachari ashram what is the duty of brahmachari, what to do and what not to do. Isn't it? That's what we are supposed to learn. You know, what is the duty of a sannyasi? What is the duty of a guru? So if we don't have clear understanding of these things, if we don't understand Varnashram Dharma and the importance of human society to function, we cannot advance in Krishna consciousness. We cannot give pleasure to Krishna. Samside hari doshanam. As it says in this verse, atapum virira sesta varnashrama bhagasa. We cannot give pleasure to Krishna. Very important. A very urgent thing, even in modern ISKCON society, there's a complete loss of understanding sometimes, particularly in Western country. What is my duty? What is the duty of a man? What is the duty of a woman? Everybody has his duty, and we have to recognize our duties, because it is dangerous to follow somebody else's path. Very important. In Bhagavad-Gita, Kṛṣṇa explains that. So this verse here is all about that. How do I get there? How do I move that?
It's on ISKCON.
It's control from the laptop.
Go up.
Oh,
The translation.
Yeah, it's right there.
There.
Yeah, action. You see, duty means action, which is regulated. In Bhagavad-Gita, Prabhupada always talks about prescribed duty. Isn't it? Prescribed duty. The duty is prescribed. It is not that in hippie society anybody, whatever comes to your mind works. If it feels good, do it. That's not our culture, you know. There's a sense of duty is impressed on people, and so if it's regulated duty, completely regulated according to Shastra. Yes, Shastra vidimucija vasāṭikam kṛtam. One who does not respect Shastra but act according to his own whim, what he thinks is right or wrong. Na sasidima vapnoti na sukham. He will not achieve perfection, na sasidim, siddha, na sukham, no happiness, na param gatim. Nobody achieves the supreme destination. It's right there, you know. So we have to understand the importance of Krishna's words. Yes, Shastra vidimucija. We have to follow Shastra. In an unregulated society, people think, well, I think whatever I think is good. I can do this, I can do that, let me go here, let me go there. There's no rule, there's no understanding of a sense of duty. And so the kids speak up to their parents, right? Or run away from home. The parents are not respected by the kids. The kids do what they like. The wife is fighting with the husband. And the husband is fighting with the wife. You know, I mean, I saw, when I came to Bengal first time, 50 years ago, and I saw how clear the role of the women and the men, how clear this was in Bengali society. Last year I came, a girl was beating her husband right in front in the public, smashed him into the face. And I said to a policeman, why don't you do anything about it? He said, what can we do? He said, it's a modern world, you know. So this is a degrading influence of Kali to destroy, you know, all these values, you know, all these duties, prescribed duties which are given in scripture by Kṛṣṇa himself. Therefore, Varnashram Dharma system is very important, to have this understanding. If your family is destroyed, like Arjuna says in Bhagavad-Gita, family, the whole society goes to hell. Right in the first chapters. And so here in this file I read, there are 69, was it?
Yes.
69 verses just talking about duty. And if anybody of you is interested, I can give him that file and read that through because you get a very clear understanding what is duty and what is not duty. One should understand what is duty and what is not duty by understanding scripture. There's a verse in Bhagavad-Gita, right there. So it is important to understand that there is a duty there, that every human being has a duty. And we should follow that to our best ability, as much as possible. And ultimately we should to bring this idea to the perfection, that we follow our duty. Duty to the spiritual master, duty to society, duty to the wife, duty to the children. A husband can, if the wife runs the house, if she runs the home, a husband cannot be a husband. A husband is naturally a husband if the wife is surrendered to him. Then he knows what to do. Automatically, a man will be, she will move his heart by her playing the role of a woman. He becomes very soft-hearted. So you cannot be a husband if the wife is a terrorist. Not possible. You know? And so we have to understand that there's a whole sense in our culture how to do what to say, what not to say, and what duty we have to play while we are in the material world. Even Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa says, I have no duties to fulfill, because he's God. But if I would not fulfill my duty, then everybody would follow my example, and the whole society will go to hell. It's right there in Bhagavad-Gita. He said, I have no duties to fulfill, but I do it, just for the sake of the peace of the society. Because by example, we are teaching. So in that sense, we have to understand that even Kṛṣṇa, he was God himself, and he bowed down in front of Yudhishthira, because Yudhishthira was older than Kṛṣṇa. So while we're in the material world, we have to follow these instructions. We cannot say, well, we are transcendental, we don't have to have any duties, we can do what we like. We can't do that. We will never be successful. We will be successful if we follow Dharma. It's as simple as that, We have to follow our Dharma as wife, the Sri Dharma. Kṛṣṇa, whole chapter in Bhagavad-Gita is the duty of a wife. And Kṛṣṇa, gopis didn't want to go home, and so Kṛṣṇa says, well, you should go home because we have a husband. And then she said, I didn't want to go, so he explains in Bhagavatam the duty of a wife. The whole Kṛṣṇa book, the whole section, just on the duty of the wife. It's very important to read this for everybody, that he understands my wife's duty is this, my husband's duty is that. In the marriage vow says that the husband is protecting and the wife is supporting him. That's the marriage vow, right there from the beginning. And so I'm using this class to bring you to the understanding regulated occupational duties as described in what says in scripture in terms of the different orders and division of society. There it is, right there. If you just understand this one sentence, regulated occupational duties, prescribed duty, as prescribed in scripture. It's not my idea, it's right in scripture. In what they're saying there?
In terms of?
In terms of the different orders and division of society, performed without detachment, rights, and therefore without any love and hatred, just in Kṛṣṇa consciousness for the satisfaction of the Lord. That's the point. Saṅga-rahitam. That's what I extract out of this verse as the most important understanding, that we have to develop a sense of duty. We should study that from Bhagavad-Gita. We should hear the sages. We shouldn't listen to our mind. The mind has no discretion. Mind means just emotions, feelings. Mind has no discretion. For that, discretion means intelligence. You need intelligence. And one who reads this conversation, it says in Bhagavad-Gita, he worships me with his intelligence. It's the most intelligent thing to do, to study Bhagavad-Gita, to study scripture, and hear from Bhagavad-Gita what is my duty and what is not my duty. So we are coming to the end now. Anybody has a question? Yeah.
So how do we balance this sense of duty with the spiritual calling, because as spirit souls we all have a calling. There's a service that attracts our heart, there's a place, there's a mood of devotion, and that's a very personal and is a very internal. There's a calling, but on the other side there's duty, and sometimes they conflict. So how can we balance this?
It takes time to do that. It takes time and experience to do that. Like Prabhupada was duty bound up to the end of his life. You see, he is a practical example. He was not absorbing himself in higher realizations. He said first deserve and then desire. First work, samadhi later. You know, so in this sentence Prabhupada already said it, first work, samadhi later. That now we are young people, you are also a young person, we have to first work and get a sense of duty and act accordingly. And then in due course of time we can balance our daily life with our personal calling. Like say, for example, somebody marries a young boy, he marries a girl. So what's his duty? He has to put the bread on the table, right? So he has to work. He may work for, I don't know, when you get to retirement in India with 50 years or 60 years, 40 years he has to work. He has a duty. At the same time, he reads scriptures or goes to the temple. So when in due course of time, when his material life becomes exhausted, that he is not anymore interested in this and that, and also he becomes retired, then he has a whole stock of work from youthhood on, reading scriptures and doing daily worship, and etc., that he has something to fall back on when he's old. Otherwise you have nothing, otherwise you end up in an old people home playing cards and watching television, you know. So it's very organic actually how we are practicing Kṛṣṇa consciousness, even when we are married and household life. Whatever you do, yat karosi yat asnasi, you do for me. That's what Kṛṣṇa says. By pleasing Kṛṣṇa, we fulfill our ultimate aspirations. You know, we otherwise, if we don't please Kṛṣṇa, then how can we advance in God consciousness? The mercy of God is everything. By Kṛṣṇa's mercy, we go to the ultimate, to the spiritual world. But we have to arouse this mercy in Kṛṣṇa. Like there is this verse in Hitopanishad that like a chariot has two wheels, in the same way fate in itself is not able to bring action unless there is the second wheel, namely action. Right? So we have a sense of duty, we have to do action in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, and then gradually, Kṛṣṇa calls us, automatically, you know. Adoshraddha, sadhu saṅga, vajrana kriya, anatta nivritti. These are the first 4 steps. Then after that there comes raganuga. Automatically. Right? It requires purification, anatta nivritti, before we can go any further. And so if there's no anatta nivritti, if you live like hippies, then we're not going to get anywhere. That's what Prabhupada said. He kept us on the ground. He said, books are the basics. You want us to preach Kṛṣṇa consciousness. While we are young, particularly, when we're older, well, what can we do? Yeah, if I were to go to the Indian army now, with 77 years old, and would say, I want to join the army, what will they say? They say, Baba, you go to Vrindavan, you're old, just chant Hare Krishna, right? They want young people, because they have energy. Kṛṣṇa gives young people, a man, the energy to raise a family. You know, when he's old, he can't do that anymore. So every stage of life has its particular advantage and disadvantage, its particular duty to fulfill. And so we just have to learn from the sages. That's why reading Bhagavad-Gita, some people say, well, that's just preliminary. You may say so, but Krishna is not just giving ABC. It's not for children, the Bhagavad-Gita. It's for everybody. You can't leave the Bhagavad-Gita behind. Naturally, we also know the higher sentiments described by the Goswamis, but Prabhupada never went there. He wanted to instill in us sense of duty. One time in Mayapur, he went with a top manager around, long time ago. And Prabhupada said to him, do you see this spot there in the wall? He said, yes. Why is it like this? And because Srila Prabhupada came to another place. And why is this there? Why is it so unclean? Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, every time he said that, he said, big fool. Simply foolish. Came to another place, and Prabhupada told him, simply foolish. He said to him, simply foolish 5 times. He's a manager, showing him something disorderly. And then in the end he said, fool, biggest fool of the whole world. You see how Prabhupada was so concerned that we follow the instruction and that we keep our society going. He would not say, well, Swamiji, I'm in higher reason. I cannot take care of that. Like even our, what's his name? Forgot his name. It's on my lips. He met Srila Prabhupada in the temple room one time, and he was a devotee, Vishal. He said to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, he quoted a verse from Bhagavad-Gita, from Bhagavatam, first canto. We have first chapter. We have met yourself by providence. So people tell Shukadeva Goswami to guide us on this path. So he said to Prabhupada that, and Prabhupada said, is this providence that there's a puddle of water on the floor? He said, clean up this puddle. Do something practical. It's a classical example. So he was going off in a high, beautiful verse. Prabhupada said, this is a will of providence that there's water on the ground. Clean this up. Do something practical. So Prabhupada taught us in the initial stage to be very down to earth. And that's why he was impressed when he saw devotees doing so many books, opening temples. You can do this when you're young. You can't do this now. So there's a duty as a young boy, there's a duty as a middle-aged man, there's a duty as a husband, there's a duty as a wife, there's a duty, everybody has a duty. And this way society is peaceful, because everybody's past is explained in Bhagavad-Gita, in our scriptures. When Kṛṣṇa was young, first his duty was to keep the calves, right? Later, as he grew up, he was given the cows. Later on, when he went to Mathura, his duty. And then he went to Dwarka and became a Kshatriya, did his duty as a Kshatriya. Ultimately he fought on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. It's all about duty. From childhood on, he had a duty to fulfill. I remember we had a situation one time that I explained in America, this situation that even the children were working. One lady said, well, that's child abuse. Children should be run around freely. I said, well, in Bhagavatam, was he abused by Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba, that he minded the cows in a very young age? Is that child abuse? You see, there's no sense of duty, there's no how do you say, no common sense in Western society even. Like Prabhupada said, common sense is not very common in Western countries. And it seeps into Indian society, this mood, this rebellious mood. Because why is there a sense of duty? Because Kṛṣṇa wants us in the spiritual world to follow his ways, not our way. For that we have to practice to follow his way, not what I want to do, what Kṛṣṇa wants to do. We have to learn that. Whole life is for that. And the whole life is this life, we don't fulfill our duty, we have to come back again. Till we understand what is the sense of duty. Hi Kṛṣṇa. Any other question? Thank you very much. Hare Kṛṣṇa. I hope it helped you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.